Well, on the flip side of this horrendous chapter in all of your lives, Frida, Scott, you get a call giving you a chance to live again, in fact. I mean, you were born with a rare heart condition, weren't you?
Yeah.
And had been in and out of hospital your entire life, in fact.
Yeah.
So this was the first lifeline had ever really been offered to you.
Absolutely. I mean, I had 4 major open heart surgeries by the time of being 13 years old, and sort of hundreds and hundreds upon of just various different medical procedures. And then, unfortunately, by age 13, my heart had completely failed, and it got that bad that I couldn't brush my own teeth. I couldn't tie my own shoelaces. I was completely blue, you know, and sort of like blue around my lips. My fingertips were blue, and it was just no life at all, you know, especially sort of being 13, 14 years old. And,
of course, you wouldn't be out with your friends. And
exactly.
So you go through the operation, it's all successful. Tell us then how this incredible meeting came about, because all you're told as the family is the first name of the person that receives the organ. That's
right.
the only detail you're given, Frida, isn't that right?
Yes.
So explain to us what happened.
I got a phone call by one of my transplant coordinators to go along to the service, and I often speak at like transplant conferences and things, and I believe there was a guy that was meant to do the service, but unfortunately he took unwell, so I was like the second choice.
So you were never, you weren't
I wasn't meant to be there. I was not meant to be there. And I went along to the service, and there was a family that had lost their daughter, and they told how they donated her organs. Then it was my turn to get up and sort of tell sort of like post-transplant and what my life was like prior, what it's like now, and so obviously I'd done so, and I tapped my chest and thanked the family of John, and then I sang I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis, sat down at the front of the church thinking everything was completely normal, and then it wasn't until the end when there was a nurse called Dawn. I mean, she's known me since being born, and she asked me for a private conversation, and I was a little bit completely bewildered. I was like, okay. So she took me in this side room, and she asked me the 3 questions that I knew about the donor. Obviously, I confirmed his name, age, and how he passed. And she says, and was it definitely of sort of September 08? And I says, yeah. I says, 1, it was the day that my life was saved, and 2, it was also my nana's birthday, who unfortunately passed the year beforehand. So there's 2 reasons I would never forget it. And then she says, I think you need to take a seat. And obviously at this time I was still like, what on earth's going on, you know? And she says, no, please just take a seat. And so I sat down, and she says, I really don't know how to tell you this. She says, but never in the history of transplantation have we known this to happen. And I was like, what's going on? And she says, your donor's mum and dad have attended exactly the same service, and I was sat at the back of the church. It was just...
So this, you were both put together then, and Frida, you just instantly wanted to touch Scott. You wanted to touch his chest. You wanted to feel that heart beating again.
That's all I'd ever wanted since I lost John. You said, you know, I mean, we got letters from the other people who received his organs, but I said, you know, your heart, you can feel a heartbeat, and that was how John's heart beating. And I said, before I leave this world, I would love to meet the boy that got his heart, because all we knew was that he was 15-year-old and he was called Scott. And that's all we ever knew. But when we went to this service, you get like an order of service, and I was sitting reading, and Scott just jumped out, the name just, and I knew. I said, that's him. That's him. He's the one, you know. And I said to my husband, he's got out John's heart, and he said, shh, you can't say that. I says, I'm telling you, know, and nobody would listen to me, but I knew, whether it was mother's instinct or what, but, you know, I had to tell them and get them to understand me. And yeah, the nurses saw the commotion at the back, and they took me back, and I said, you know, and they said, well, we'll have to check it out, and we'll have to speak to him first, which they obviously did. And then after the service and the church emptied, he just stood at the front of the church and opened his arms. And
the pair of them just like fell straight into my arms, and we just cuddled and cried. And then it was so like dead serene. It was very, very quiet, you know. And it's almost like something you would read about like in a book or sort of like in a film, you know. You would never think it would ever happen. And I remember Frida taking my hand, and she says, can I please feel the heartbeat? So I opened my jacket and I put a hand to my heart, and John's dad put his hand on top of hers, and I put my 2 over theirs, and we just stood there for about 3 minutes, just in complete silence. It was
incredible.
It was
story.
absolutely.
And you've got this wonderful bond now. And it's interesting, like Theresa May, it was just last week, has suggested that England switched to this opt-out system, a bit like Wales have. And I'm guessing you both feel very, very strongly about that at this stage as well. That's the way it should be. We need to opt out of the system as opposed to assuming. You wouldn't be here, Scott, if it wasn't for a donation. It's wonderful to meet you both. Thank you, Frida.
Thank you.
What an incredible story, and good luck with everything, Scott.
Thank you.